All right, as you're coming in, do me a big favor. Just keep it really down. Dogs are already put away. They are kind of sensitive to doors opening and closing. But one of them gets scared and she barks. So as you're coming in, just kind of keep it quiet, as we already discussed. And then I'm also going to tell you that it might get a little loud in here because when I taught classes around the world, I did it with, some people said, the timing and ferociousness of a Baptist minister, which is, I'm not a Baptist minister, but I am a Christian minister now. So I do get enthusiastic about it, about my classes, and I believe that that was also a calling from God that I did, that I worked in law enforcement all those years. So as I said, just if you could, just keep it down while we're doing this, and if there's laughter, just kind of cover it up a little bit. I know some of what I say may be funny because that's part of the way I used to teach my classes. This is also kind of bringing me back to a place I don't like, because now I do, well, the cat's outside and she's got a snake. Anyways, because I chase squirrels, but one of the things that I'm devoted my life to Jesus Christ, so I don't like to talk about some of the things that I used to do. And by a man's standard, I was a good man, but by God's standard, I was not a good guy. So I have a lot of issues with who I used to be, and I know that I'm forgiven, and so I have to let that go. And most of the time I don't. I just use it as a point of reference. But anyways, the class that I'm going to teach, well, before I start, does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Robert,
Yeah.
How are you today?
I'm doing good.
So what are you going to teach us?
Well, I'm going to teach us how to conduct a secondary investigation.
Right on. I am looking forward to it. I think, hey Charlie, you too? Jimmy? We're all looking forward to it.
Okay, good to go. Does anybody else have any other questions before we start?
Can you give us a little background?
Yeah. So training experience, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, we want to know who's teaching us this class.
Okay. Fair enough. So I could tell you, hey, you should watch these other videos I have out there, but I'm not going to do that to you. So this is who I was. My name is Robert Sean Detherow. I was born in Northern California. In a very poor area. It was called Okie Hill. It was on the outskirts of town. It was during the 70s, and most people waved with their middle finger to the police. And I grew up with an attitude that the police were not there to help you. You should run from them. So that was who I was growing up. Normal household for today's standards, but back then I was raised by a single mother. I was a bastard child, and it was pointed out to me on multiple occasions. So back then, there weren't a lot of single parents out there doing what my mom did, and God bless her, she was a sinner. So after that, she repented, and I believe she died on her knees praying to Jesus Christ. She was there for probably about 7 days before somebody found her. But that's who I was raised by. And so I went into the Marine Corps, trying to rebel against my mom a little piece, I guess, because she was such a peaceful person. And I went into the infantry of all things. I scored really high on the ASVAB, and instead of doing something with it like my buddy Scott did, and he went and became a Boeing mechanic or something like that, or he's like an engineer, I don't know. But he worked on the, what were they called? The Sea Knights, I believe. Anyways, it was our rotary aircraft, the twin rotary aircraft. Anyways, he went into that. He scored pretty high on the ASVAB too. Both of us, we grew up since kindergarten, and I had been, I just had been attached to this recruiter because I didn't have a dad at home, and his name was Gunny Coon. I was just so attached to him, and he would take me home, and him and his wife would feed me at the end of the day. I didn't eat much. I weighed about 98 pounds, and I was like, I had to get a 5-pound waiver to get into boot camp. So I was a skinny little fella, and I wanted to go infantry. That's the only part of the Marine Corps I wanted. And I'd been playing Army Navy guy that has a gun when I was little, and I loved anything about it. So I went in the Marine Corps, and I was in there for 6 years. I obtained a whole bunch of certificates, some of them in nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. I was an infantry sergeant. I was a combat veteran. I got out and I became a reserve staff sergeant. I'm an 0369. Shout out to India 39, India. Bastards of bastards of bastards. That's why I fit in so well there. Here's that. So after that, I was in Desert Storm. So after Desert Storm, I got married, and we did another pump over to the Philippines, and I was married, so I didn't do anything I wasn't supposed to do. But I realized at that point that going overseas a lot was probably too much of a temptation for me. And I wanted to do something like raise a family. But I also wanted to serve my community. I have a deep sense of patriotism because at that point I had a truck. I know it didn't sound like much, but I never had anything. So I had a truck and I had a surfboard, and I thought I was rich. And I got married. So after that, I wanted to raise children and such, so I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps, and my wife and I moved to Northern California, the Bay Area. And I wanted to be a policeman. I thought, man, that is a great way to serve. And in the meantime, I thought, I don't want to do that. I want to be a U.S. Marshal. So I went and took the test, and back then you could take the test. You didn't have to have a college degree, and they were accepting guys who had just gotten out of the Marine Corps. So I was I was the #1 candidate for the U.S. Marshal Service in 1992. At the end of the year, they had a hiring freeze, and so I didn't have anything to do. So in the meantime, I decided to take some college courses. And as I did that, I met some people along the way who were into law enforcement and were law enforcement instructors. They were friends of mine until they passed away. I really enjoyed them. But I was a civilian guy, man, and I was just hanging out, enjoying not being a Marine. I was a Marine at the, on the weekend. I was still in the reserves, and I was about probably one of the sergeants that had the most fun, so I enjoyed it. We went on deployment for 2 weeks out of the year, so it was no big deal. And then I'd come back home. So while waiting to be a U.S. Marshal, I thought, well, you know what? I'll go to the local police academy and I'll get some more college units, and then I'll continue with my degree. So I went to the police academy in 1992. It was our introduction there. And then we completed it in 1993, and then I was hired by the Pittsburgh Police Department. So that's a long way to get there. It was pretty good. My wife and my now kid, my oldest son, they showed up, and they were there. And I did quite a while there, and one night I was chasing a fella, and he was on PCP, and was traveling the wrong way on the freeway. And long story short is he didn't kill me, and I ended up in a drainage ditch, and I blew out my vertebrae in the lower part of my back and both of my knees. And so they don't have an iron sight. If you notice I keep moving around, it's because I went through a thing after this called Feldenkrais, but we'll get to that. Anyway, so I was really on the sick, lame, and lazy list, and they were seeing me on my way out. But the unfortunate part is I was just about to be promoted to inspector. I was 30 days away from that, and I'd already been a detective, and I'd done these specialty assignments, and I'd done all these other things. And in the meantime, I'd gotten certified with the U.S. Army as I never got hired by the police department yet, have I? Did I get hired yet? No. Oh, so let me backtrack. My wife's over there going, "You got out of sync," and I'm going, okay. So after the police academy, I got hired. I passed through the hat, and I got hired by the Pittsburgh, California Police Department. And I was a cop there for a while, and I became a field training officer. And after being a field training officer for a while, I was a police detective. And after a police detective, I was on some weird anti-terrorist team they had thought up after 9/11. And I'd also been in the Marine Corps Reserve, and then I'd done a little time in the National Guard to get a certification for military police. So now I'd obtained that. So I get hurt, and I do this thing called Feldenkrais for a couple years. And after I do that, I end up, and during the course of my career in Pittsburgh, I obtained more certificates. Let's put it this way. I've lost more certificates that I obtained there than most deputies on the streets will ever obtain. That was a place where you knew within the first 3 weeks whether you were going to die in the streets, you were going to leave the department, or you were going to make it. And if you made it your first year, you were pretty much golden in law enforcement anywhere, because you could write your own ticket. You knew everything about dope. You knew everything about investigations. Because back when I started, it was a full investigative department, and you started out as a patrolman. You carried that investigation all the way through. And add insult to injury, you old young fellers that are here. Guess what? Those were all handwritten reports. Handwritten reports. I was part of the age where we did the transformation from handwritten reports to we stretched it out into this thing called a computer. So there were a lot of people that were resistant to that, and they just retired. I was too young to retire, so I was part of that transition where we used floppy disks. It was just a whole big mess. But anyway, a good time at Pittsburgh Police Department. A lot of people that I met there, they were really good. Some people were scumbags, but that's how it was. And I'm not talking about the suspects. I'm talking about the police officers I worked with. Morally bankrupt, some of them too. So I saw the whole gamut. I saw officers arrested, multiple officers arrested. I saw multiple officers violate the law, violate search warrants, violate this and that. It was an active department. It was the 90s. I didn't do that. That's why I'm not in jail or prison right now. So anyways, after that, I didn't know what to do, and I moved my family to Oklahoma about the time I started looking into an anti-terrorist team. I'd done a Feldenkrais, which is you learn how to stand up and walk around, you stay mobile. It averts the mind from the pain in your back, and then you fall down like little children and stand up like little children. It's a fun kind of thing, but anyways, I devoted myself to learning how to do this and then look normal when I'm standing there, not in total pain. So I did that, and I got through whatever indoctrination I had to go through for working State Department missions. So I did that, and then I did a couple 3 years in Afghanistan, and I came up with a good idea. Dark horse. So if you Google 27, this was my last assignment in Afghanistan. You Google 27 and Google the Dark Horse. So 2nd Battalion 7th Marines. It's a reintroduction to Marines in Afghanistan. I thought it was a great idea. Lost a lot of good guys. And so then I took a break. I went home, and my mom died. And then I came back to Afghanistan. They promoted me to different positions. And my mom passed away, and I didn't know what else to do. And plus it was a hard mission. So I decided to go ahead and just kick back. So I kicked back for a while, and the local police chief asked me if I would work for him, and I said, yeah. And I said, yeah, I would, but I can't because I retired from California. He said, well, if I got you a waiver, like Oklahoma gave you a medical waiver and you got a waiver from your retirement, could you work there? And I said, I don't know, what would I be doing? Mostly Explorer program. Oh, well, I'm physically fit to be an Explorer advisor, so I did that, but I went through the Oklahoma State Academy. And guess what? They had no physical requirements. That's right. So me standing around doing this, pretty good. Me teaching little kids on how to respect the law and, do silly things like operations and what have you. Good too. So I had a good time there. I worked for them for a couple years, and I was really enjoying it. And I'd been the president of the Police Officers Association in California, and then later on, I was I was elected the president of the Bartlesville Police Officers Association to help them figure out what was going on with their pay and some other things, and some civil rights violations possibly, and other things going on. So I continued obviously with my training experience in the State Department. I gained a stack of certificates from them because I was a training guy. I got some more certifications from Bartlesville because I was the first guy in Oklahoma history to graduate with his advanced certification in law enforcement from their academy. I helped them revamp that a little bit. It was a really good time, A0902. Those are my dogs there. I loved it. Yeah, I mean, they were the most respectful bunch of law enforcement people I've ever seen. The Oklahoma law enforcement people are above reproach. They are so honest in what they're doing. When they make mistakes, they fully admit that they make a mistake and they'll apologize to you. Their heart, and most of them are Christ followers. So that made me feel really good. I really enjoyed Oklahoma, and I enjoyed their 6-month police academy where all it was learning Oklahoma law, but I already knew most of it because it's modeled after California law. So it was fun. I had a great time. Nathan Mellon, he and I became Masons. We had a good time. I really enjoyed Bartlesville. And then right around, it was January of 2011, the State Department asked me if I would go to Afghanistan again to finish out a mission that I had started. Well, after the last one, I said no. So they were pretty insistent that they wanted me to work for them and asked me if I wanted to go to Haiti. So I don't know where that is. Oh, here. So I decided to go to Haiti. So I had a boss who used to say, Haiti. So I went to Haiti and I was there for a few years, and my job had to do with police corruption, all right, conflict resolution, which is not what you think, all right. I did that in Afghanistan too. You have a conflict and you have to resolve it, all right. I did investigations, and I taught a lot of classes, because when you're not doing all your active stuff and mentoring the people that you're supposed to be mentoring, you're teaching classes to some of the lower level guys, maybe some of the detectives, investigators. In fact, we'd get the entire DOJ guys over there, all the investigators, and we'd have classes for them. So it was a really good time. I worked with a guy named Barry Bunch, solid guy, one of the best law enforcement officers I've ever worked for, and he can fix anything. I enjoyed that. I did that for a couple years, and then it got to the point to where Benghazi and Haiti needed some more security, and it was refused. So I went home. That was it. I was done. It wasn't worth it. I didn't stick around. There's not a movie about Haiti. And now look at the place. But anyways, most of my certifications, I don't know if I mentioned some of them. This is some more stuff. All right. Okay. I have like more I got everything. Whatever you guys want to talk about, I got. Anyways, after that, in an act of humility, because I don't like to talk about any of this stuff, I took a job as a park ranger. I'd always wanted to be one, so I worked for Flagler County as a park ranger. And the interesting part about that is you get to really know who will treat you like shit and who will treat you good no matter what position you're in. Having been a professional, wearing a suit and tie all the time, I know which people on the council will turn around and treat me like shit, and I won't ever pay for any of their election stuff at all, because they did. Some of those people were terrible, and one of the people that they had hired, the county administrator, Craig Coffey, literally walked around like a plantation overseer. And the big reward is if you got to come up to the truck and get a little AC off the window. Now that's still a practice that they do, and it really is appreciated when you're working in the hot Florida sun. But I had to do that as an act of humility, because I wasn't anything special. I had some special jobs around the world, and I taught investigations. I taught it with like passion, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before I do that, I want to tell you about the Lord Jesus Christ. Nah, I'm just kidding. I do believe in Jesus, and I will tell you that he is my Lord and Savior. If you're interested in that, I got other videos about that, and like Crick Ministries is my whole thing. I don't know. That's it. Thank you, God, for saving me. Anyway, so that's pretty much who I was. I have some extracurricular activities. I'm a chaplain for a historic society. Great bunch of guys there. I'm a minister for that. I don't know. Just average. So, and you know what I am? I'm your Thursday, Friday, Monday guy. That's right. So I do YouTube videos. They're not that popular, but anyways, here's the thing. So today's class, we're going to have some enabling learning objectives. We're going to have some terminal learning objectives. Your enabling learning objectives are just really simple, and your terminal learning objective is going to be how to conduct a secondary investigation. So your enabling learning investigations or learning objectives, we're going to talk about a subpoena deuces take-em. All right. Yep. Go ahead.
I think that's the wrong spelling of deuces.
Oh, you are correct. That's the wrong spelling for deuces. It's D-U-C. I spelled it like deuces. Yeah, D-U-C. You are correct. I didn't even notice that. Okay, so, that's the other thing. Listen, this is the most imperative. How to conduct a secondary investigation. So, when you're doing this, if you make a mistake, it's imperative that you acknowledge your mistake, not try to cover it up. You acknowledge your mistake, and if it can be fixed, then you correct the situation. But absolutely, transparency is the most important thing in an investigation. Unless you're using deception, which you're not there yet, so don't start. So one of the reasons I'm teaching this class is because the Flagler County Sheriffs is absolutely undertrained. I know of at least 3 incidents where they've arrested the victim because they wouldn't make a statement. I can tell you that they treat your civil rights and your constitutional rights like they're just a flippant joke. So, and they couldn't investigate their way out of a paper bag. And this is for my Marine friends out there. I do have a Marine friend that's missing. His name is Anthony Toth, Anthony Joseph Toth. He was born May 22nd, 1966. He is a missing person, an adult missing person. It was reported to the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. According to them, he's been entered into the national database as a missing person. But I'm going to tell you this. Marines, if you're relying on the detective working on this case, she's got missing teeth and she's overweight. And so if you're in my position as a trained investigator, if someone isn't willing to take care of their own hygiene, they're probably not going to be too meticulous on their investigations. Now, I've seen that historically throughout my career in law enforcement. That isn't a bag on the overweight, tooth-rotting lady. But I mean, I know Flagler County has dental, so there's something else going on with this investigator. So if you're relying on her, maybe she's depressed or whatever, she's obviously not doing her job. So if you're relying on her to do the job of finding Anthony Toth, it is not going to happen with her. So if you guys want to come on down, we can maybe take a look for him, take a look at all the places we can, go to every VA facility, whatever. I'm getting to the point where I think I'm comfortable with doing that. So we'll see. Anyways. Today's class, how to conduct a secondary investigation. Why I'm calling it a secondary investigation is because when you first arrive on scene, all right, you are the responding officer, the RO. All right, let's talk about who we're talking about. We have the victim, we have the subjects, we have the suspects, we have the responding officer, and we have the investigator. And the investigator is you. So you're going to be making contacts with suspect, victim, witness, and neighborhood contacts. Here's something the Flagler County Sheriff doesn't know about. It's called neighborhood contacts and character references. You want to go around and you want to find out the character of the people involved in the incident if it isn't readily apparent. That's so important to your investigation. Remember, you're not on patrol right now. You're a trained investigator. All right, so when you get there, the first thing you want to do is you want to talk to the responding officer if he's on scene. And so, let's see. Oh, before I get into that, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about secondary investigation or continuing. Some people call it a continuing investigation for legal purposes. Maybe in your state it needs to be called continuing, or in the military, depending on what it is. Make sure you look up your legal definitions. I'm not trying to give you those. I'm trying to give you the class on conducting an investigation. So, subpoena deuces taken. All right, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about arrest warrant, search warrant, and consent to search. So we'll just cover it as we're going along. So, but subpoena deuces taken, maybe I should cover that because that's going to be a really, really important one that you know what it is. If you don't know what it is and you're watching this as a video, all right? If you don't know what it is and you're watching this as a video, then what you need to do is you need to look this up, subpoena deuces taken, all right? And let me see, where are my glasses? Here they are. Okay, subpoena deuces taken. All right, so let's see. I made some notes. I said I would not feel comfortable handing over any and all recording devices as there may be items that were not sensitive in nature when photographed, have gained value or subsequently been classified that may be in breach or a sensitive items breach, but may not be regarded as of value for post-classification. For instance, when I worked in Haiti, I may have some pictures on my personal devices that later on were turned over to somebody, but those items on top of my laptop that are contained in there, from that, if someone else were to see them, that would be a violation of security. So those items have been classified, but I'm not retaining classified information. They were not classified when I took them. So they're my personal pictures. I own them. You see, they're my property. So there's a difference between property. So would I feel comfortable with you guys having classified information? No. So you would have to get a subpoena ducis tecum to take my property, okay? So a subpoena ducis tecum, basically, you're asking a witness to bring books, documents, or other items, nowadays, computers, cell phones, those kind of things, all right, that are under your control, so that the person's his or her control, and she is bound to produce the evidence, she is bound to produce the evidence by the judge. So the judge signs a subpoena ducis tecum, okay? So that's subpoena ducis tecum. Arrest warrant. So an arrest warrant, when you have probable cause to suspect that somebody's done something, and you're not going to send it to a grand jury. So there's a whole nother thing, right? So you have probable cause for the arrest of a subject, but you do not have him in custody. And that's based on specific and articulable facts that you can go ahead and dive through. Okay, so, and are the elements of the crime there. So the next one is an arrest warrant. So once you've gotten all the items that you need and you have probable cause for an arrest, that's the arrest warrant. So the search warrant is the next one. So search warrant. So if you have the search warrant, why would you obtain a search warrant? Well, let's say someone's committed a crime, and after they've committed a crime, or you have reasonable suspicion and probable cause to believe that they've committed a crime, you want to go to a judge and use, once again, here are those words: specific and articulable facts. I'm going to say it again: specific and articulable facts. So you have specific and articulable facts that you send to a judge, and they meet the elements of a crime, and it explains what the exigent circumstances are that causes you to not just ask for permission. For whatever reason, you think they're going to destroy the evidence, you think they're going to flee and burn everything, or whatever you think. So you have to explain to the judge why a search warrant is necessary, why you couldn't just ask them for consent. Did you first ask them for consent? In California, a lot of times before you ask the judge, you go and ask the person, hey, can I come look at your stuff? And they say no. And then you go, okay, I'll go get the warrant. But a lot of times they'll say, yeah, sure, come on in. I got nothing to hide. Come on in. You want to take some items? Go ahead. Take it all. So that's how you cooperate with someone in an investigation. So if you can obtain consent, so consent to search. See this? Consent to search. So you always carry consent to search forms, because later on, here's what you can do. If you decide to get a consent to search form and you have it there and you just have them sign it, you're making a nice, agreeable situation with the fellow that you're wanting to search, right? So now he signs it, everything's cool, but you get the warrant anyways. You still get the warrant, okay? I'm not telling you not to get the warrant, you still get the warrant. If you have probable cause to think that you need some stuff inside that house, you're gonna get that warrant. So that's the search warrant. And then consent to search, we already covered that, okay? So so those are the things we're going to be covering in this class, all right? So what's the first thing that's going to happen? The first thing that happens usually in an investigation is you get a call. So it's either going to be a 911 call or it's going to be a call to the non-emergency number. But when it comes in, as an investigator, you want to find out what the nature of that call was. So what's the nature of the call? Let's say we're going to make up a scenario right now. Let's make up a scenario. What do you want to say the scenario is? Strong arm robbery. Okay, so here's the case. The case is going to be strong arm robbery. Okay. Let's see. What are the names of the suspects? Or what are the names of the suspects we're going to use? All right. Let's see. Aaron. Got Aaron. All right. And give me another name.
Dale.
Dale. Okay, got Dale over there. Aaron and Dale. Let's just say hypothetically those are the suspects' names. All right, now, who are we going to say? What is it? I know. The victim over here. Here's the victim. He's going to be Lil Ricky Jr. Okay? So you guys know who Rick is. Big Rick the Dick. You guys know who he is. He's your boss. So Big Rick is a Little Ricky Jr. All right? Here's how the call comes in, though. Well, before we get to the call, I'm going to give you a scenario because this is an investigative class. You understand? This is an investigative class. So I'm going to give you the scenario, and then we're going to backtrack, and I'll show you how to investigate that. Here's the scenario. So Aaron and Dale are, let's say, hypothetically, habitual drunks. So habitual drunks, we call them 647Fs. All right. So we got the 647Fs there. They're the habitual drunks. Everybody's got a little name for whatever it is. All right. So they're aggressive panhandlers. You know that they occupy, let's say, give me a store in the local area. Kangaroo. There you go, Kangaroo. So they go, and it's not called the Kangaroo anymore, but let's call it the Kangaroo for now. So they go to the Kangaroo, and they're always there. They're aggressively panhandling. So what do we know about the Kangaroo if we're an investigator here? Yeah, who said that? Okay, right. So the Kangaroo is a square building. You guys are really good. What else do you know? That's right. It's surrounded by a little forest. Who said that? All right. Forest. As in Gump. Forrest Gump. Just like some of you guys, right? That's okay. We were all there once. Remember, I go into Bible stuff too, but remember, Paul said we were all there once, right? We were all those ignorant sinners, so be nice to them, right?
Amen.
Right? Amen. That's right. You're an amen. Okay, so you know there's a little forest down there, and then the rest of this, there's a big gap here. There's a little, what do you call it? Maybe a walkway or something goes around the corner, goes that way. And then over here, more bushes, and then a residential neighborhood that goes off into the distance. So it's still a little gas station they got there, right? So you got Aaron and Dale. They decide that they're going to go down to the Kangaroo. They're already pretty drunk anyway, so they're going to go down to the Kangaroo. And one of them's got some money. I don't know which one. Let's just switch it up and say Aaron has the money, so he's got some money. But Dale, he's kind of he don't have no money, and he likes to beat up the homeless, or he likes to panhandle aggressively, or pressure people, strong arm rob the people that are around there at the benches. He likes to strong arm them for their money. Now remember, the names might not always be the same, okay? So Little Ricky Jr. is probably not going to be the name of your victim, but I want you to put a face on it that you can recognize. Because no matter what Little Ricky Jr. has done, I want you to think of him, Little Ricky Jr. Just that lovely little boy that used to run around the police department. Remember him? Yeah. So let's call him Little Ricky Jr. So then over here, you got Aaron and Dale, habitual drunks, criminal history. Okay, there's a yes on that. So they have a criminal history. How did they get there? Skateboard? How old are they? 49? Hold on. 49 and 51. Okay. So how did they get there? Skateboards? You really want me to write that? Bicycle. Okay, let's go with bicycle. Bicycle. Okay. So now we have these guys. So they're going to go down there, and this one has money and this one doesn't. So he's just going to go ahead and strong arm. He's going to go ahead and strong arm somebody who's there and get some money. They're going to both have beverages. Otherwise, if there's nobody there, then he'll split his booze with him. They're already pretty heated, so it's okay. So they go down there, and Little Ricky Jr., everybody knows he's into Jesus because, he's Little Ricky Jr. And so, but Little Ricky Jr., you wouldn't recognize him now. He's got a neck tattoo, and it has something to do with Jesus and all this other stuff. So you don't really recognize him at first. So you just think he's the neck tattoo guy. So that's how you're going to view him at first. All right, so these guys, they don't even know he has a neck tattoo because he's wearing a hoodie. So he goes over to him and he says, hey kid, give me some money. And the kid says, I'll tell you about Jesus. Now the kid, how old is Ricky? Little Ricky Jr.? 22? All right, it's 22. So he says, hey, give me some money. And he says, I'll tell you about Jesus. He says, look kid, I'm a Buddhist. I don't give a F about Jesus. Give me that money. And then at that point, there's a couple words exchanged and he tries to grab the kid. Which at point, Dale starts to get really effed up. That kid, little Ricky Jr., everybody knows he got out of the Marine Corps, all right? He got out a little bit early. There was a situation. He got pushed in line with all the other people that were getting out for COVID and all these other things too. Honorable discharge, but he's out early. So now what? He doesn't have a job because he doesn't sleep very well, right? So who is little Ricky Jr.? So he's actually really there talking about Jesus. Does he drink? No. So he doesn't drink alcohol. We know that about him. Loves Jesus. So we know that about him. But we also know little Ricky Jr. is pretty much badass, isn't he? Because he grew up with his dad, who's an anti-terror specialist or something, right? What was little Ricky? What was Big Rick? I guess he's just the sheriff. So, he was a fat guy and then he lost a lot of weight. That's what he was. But, okay, so, but little Ricky Jr., he's actually a badass. More badass than Big Rick ever was. So little Ricky Jr., he's a badass guy and wanted to have a whole career in the Marine Corps. Did not get that. Pretty sad. So he's just here telling people about Jesus and playing dominoes in the middle of the night because he can't sleep. He's got issues. He just can't sleep. So loves to help his dad in the garden. Carries a little pocket knife, helping his dad in the garden. Just a lovely boy. I gave him that knife. So I gave little Ricky Jr. that knife. Remember that? When I was Big Rick the Dick? Did it happen? I don't know. It's my scenario. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I told you my class is kind of weird. I do some weird stuff. It doesn't matter. Okay, so getting back to this. So Dale approaches him and he says, hey, no, look. And he goes to grab him, at which point little Ricky Jr. unleashes a huge can of whoop-ass. And he just starts throttling him. He has a right to stand his ground. So he's throttling this guy, stopping the attack on him, using the force necessary to stop the attack. Pretty cool. But in the meantime, Aaron comes out of the store, sees what's going on, jumps on his back. He knew Dale was going to go strong arm rob him. So now he's not saving his friend. He's an accomplice. So we know this. We're going to learn this, right? He's an accomplice to a strong arm robbery. But you're going to use that against him later on. All right? You're going to use that in your favor. Not against him, but in your favor later on. You're going to use that. So, while he's attacking little Ricky Jr. from behind, little Ricky Jr. takes out the pocket knife and goes like this, gives him a couple jabs behind his back, turns around, and when the suspect comes at him, jabs and says, back off. So as he does this, both guys who are drunk already run to their bicycles, get on their bicycles, and go home. Now, they're so drunk, they don't realize that they're injured until they get home. And one dude realizes he's gotten sliced on his face and on his arm and on his shoulder. Didn't realize. Well, they don't actually want to call the police. They want to call an ambulance. They don't want the police involved because they started out committing a strong arm robbery. And this guy right here, Dale, knows it. So he knows it's a strong arm robbery. This guy, we're not sure if he knows it or not. We know that he saw his friend being attacked and he jumped from behind. So we're going to use that in our favor later on too. Okay, this is all how the investigation should be conducted. So they go home and they call for an ambulance. So you get on scene. After all this stuff has gone down, they're probably long gone. The first thing you want to ask the officer when you get on scene is, who did they call? Not, did they call 911 and dispatch sent him to? Who did they call? What was their mindset? Were they calling for an ambulance or were they calling for police? If the injuries are not life-threatening, but they are pretty bad. So if they call for an ambulance, obviously they're not calling for police unless there's been a crime. But no, are they calling for the ambulance? Because if they're calling for the ambulance, it means they're trying to hide something. So you immediately want to go into it going, why did they call for the ambulance and not police? So then you're going to go talk to your victims. Already have that in your mind. Okay, hold on. So they didn't call the police, they called for an ambulance. And they made him sign an affidavit saying something happened. And the cops pretty much pressure you here into signing an affidavit saying this is what happened, true and correct. So they signed something saying this is what happened. So what is it that they signed? Something that says, all right, well, victim one, when you get there, let's call Dale. Let's call him number one. So Dale says, oh, I got beat up. By who? Oh, I don't know. It's no big deal. But my friend Aaron, he got cut up. Aaron doesn't know what's going on. Maybe he doesn't even know Dale, but he's willing to talk about everything. Oh no, I came outside and Dale was getting attacked, and I just jumped on his back. Dale was getting attacked, and I just jumped on his back. And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, the kid was beating us. He was beating us off. And then after that, then the next thing I know, we ran away so fast. Okay, now you're an investigator and you're looking at these heavy-set guys. And you've already watched the videotape store, so you know the kid's skinny. So you're watching these guys that have 80 pounds on this kid, and he's saying he was able to run away from him and jump on a bicycle and go away, and that kid couldn't have caught him? Okay, there's sign number two that something is fishy. So you go, okay, well, you start trying to pin Dale down on some things, and he's not clear. He doesn't remember what happened when he first talked to the kid. He said something about Jesus, and then he attacked me. I told him I was a Buddhist, and he attacked me. So that's the story Dale's going to tell. And then you have Aaron over here. Aaron, like I said, he just says he sees his friend being attacked, so he goes and does that, right? All right, so now we want to find out, but something doesn't seem right? Does it pass the litmus test of your nose? Does it stink? Does something smell bad? Does it smell fishy? Because that's why we're conducting an investigation, right? Because something isn't right here. So we don't just say, oh, okay, well, they got attacked and Little Ricky Jr. is a suspect. Now we've identified it's Little Ricky Jr. So we're going to go get a subpoena, do some stake him or a search warrant or something. Hold on. So do we know the character of Little Ricky Jr.? Does he have a criminal history? Where does he live? Those kind of things. Well, if we don't know who he is, but in this case we know it's Little Ricky Jr. We see his neck tattoo. We know immediately it's Little Ricky Jr. We know that he's been stopped recently helping the homeless. He was asked what was he doing out with these degenerate people. He says, oh, I'm just helping the homeless. He has a home, lives here at his place with his dad, Big Rick. It's Little Ricky Jr. Anyway, so we look at it and we go, okay, what do we have here? So you try to talk to Aaron because Aaron's willing to cooperate and Dale isn't. And Little Ricky Jr., well, since you walked up to him and you want to ask him what's going on, but he says, no, I'm not going to talk to you. Why isn't he going to talk to you? Because you've already focused on him as the suspect, the kid with the neck tattoo, not recognizing it's Little Ricky Jr. yet. So you focused on him. It's the guy with the neck tattoo. So he must be the suspect. They say he did it. The guy with the neck tattoo on the video must be the suspect, right? But something doesn't pass the litmus test. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something called neighborhood contacts. We're going to go check the forest where we know that the homeless camp is and see if anybody else saw the incident. There's a good idea. Yeah, we're going to serve that search warrant on Little Ricky Jr.'s house and get those items, just in case we're wrong on this. And if he doesn't want to cooperate, the likelihood is these two guys are swearing to God that they had the helicopter and everything else. They've already sworn that what they're telling you is true and correct. So you want to act as their agents, but at the same time, something doesn't smell right to you, and you're not just a chump report taker, you're an investigator, so you're going to do some investigating. So you're going to check the character of this guy. You're going to go find out what's about him. You're going to go do neighborhood contacts. You're going to go contact his parents. You're going to go everywhere that you think that kid may have gone, that 22-year-old, everywhere. You're going to go talk to the homeless people. Do you know this guy? Has he been helping people? Do you know him? If they'll talk to you. Most of the time, they don't want to talk to investigators. But there's a couple people, like there's a female homicide investigator for Flagler County. Yeah, you know who she is. Shorter, she's about ready to retire. People talk to her. So you get somebody like that to go talk to some of the homeless people and find out if they actually know Little Ricky Jr. talk to him, find out whether or not he drinks alcohol, find out if he does drugs, find out if he does anything. You find out the character and the background of your suspect, right? Because that's important. You already got him in custody. Now you're screwed, right? If he turns out to be the victim, you already got him in custody. So you're going to have to find his character and make sure he has a nice little thing. Because why did you arrest him? Because he wouldn't make a statement and you're not capable of doing an investigation. That's why you've arrested him. You weren't capable of doing an investigation, so you've arrested him. You jumped the gun. So I'm going to tell you how to conduct a secondary investigation. So what do you do after that? Well, now you go over to these guys and you start making neighborhood contacts with them. You find out what kind of people they are. Do they stay up late? Do they play loud music? Do they do drugs? Are they loud and obnoxious? Do they get drunk and fight? Do they aggressively panhandle? Do they attend church? What kind of people are they? What is their character? So you find out what kind of character they have. So you go, okay, So if you find out that they're alcoholics, that's not a crime. But they have criminal histories, and you find out what some of it's for, and you think the likelihood is that little Ricky Jr. had his hoodie on, they couldn't see his neck tattoo. I think they tried to strong arm rob little Ricky Jr. So let's find out. So here, how do we find out? Because there are victims. What do? Well, you don't have to admit that you're wrong yet. Here's what you do. You go talk to Aaron, and you say, hey, Aaron, I think when you were going down to the Kangaroo, that you and Dale had the intention of finding somebody. Well, not you, but Dale had the intention of finding somebody to either aggressively panhandle or maybe get a little money from, right? So here's what you have to decide. You're going to decide whether or not you knew beforehand and you're an accomplice or a principal, or are you a witness? Because if you didn't know what he was going to do, but at any point after the fact you knew that he tried to rob him, which you did, right? We know. So you knew at one point that he was going to try to rob him, so now you have to make a decision, right? Are you going to be a witness or are you going to be suspect too? Because right now we're going to go in there and we already have enough probable cause to arrest your friend. So then you go into Dale and you say, hey Dale, Aaron and the evidence shows that you approached that kid in order to get money. Now, you may not be comfortable with this just yet. So before you take it that far, here's what you can do. You can send a question to little Ricky Jr.'s defense attorney. The question I would probably ask, because they don't want to answer any questions or talk to you until they have an attorney present. So you're an investigator, right? But you don't want to push it because you're still doing your investigation. Will you tell me what the initial contact with Dale was? So that's your question. What was the initial contact with Dale? And let's say, through his attorney, he says, Dale approached me and demanded money. I said that I could tell him about Jesus, but I didn't have money. He said, I know you have money, and then demanded money from me, trying to physically extract it from me, at which point I defended myself. At which point, Aaron jumped on my back, and I didn't know. I thought he was trying to kill me and continue the robbery. So he writes that. That's your simple statement. So now you have your actual victim statement. So that's your victim statement. So you've already asked the judge for a search warrant. You've already done all this other stuff. You've already said that there was probable cause to arrest this guy, but it's explainable. You didn't really make a mistake that was unrepairable, but you made a mistake. You got investigative lock. You focused on the wrong suspect right away. So now we're conducting this secondary investigation or continuing investigation. See, in California too, here's another interesting thing about the Bay Area in California. They have a district attorney's liaison officer, and that officer is responsible for taking cases to the district attorney's office. And usually it's a junior detective to give him the biggest jab when he first gets there, because Pittsburgh, California, you show up with 12 felonies and 16 to 40 misdemeanors for a weekend thing. So if you were doing that, you had to do all the follow-up that the officers didn't do. And then it was a smaller department, so when you saw a habitual officer not continuing to do follow-up, you made sure that you got on him because you're responsible for doing all the follow-up. But it was a great way to introduce you into all the elements of crimes. So you did everything from sex crimes to murders to whatever they needed extra information on, you worked on that as the district attorney's liaison. And as the smaller cases, let's say robberies, not homicides, so robberies and burglaries and those things, you actually took the case to the district attorney's office and pled that case to see if they would file it. So, you've messed up already. You've had it filed against Little Ricky Jr. It's not irreparable. What you do is you present the new evidence to the judge. You present the new evidence to the state's attorney. And you say, hey, here's what happened. I got Aaron in the box and I told him he could either be a witness or a suspect. When I got Dale in the box, he admitted to the fact that he was trying to commit a strong arm robbery, which means that this young man was defending himself and standing his ground. So, what we want to do then is we take all the information that we've gathered, which is, their habitual, all their character stuff, their statements. Here's the thing about making their statements. You can bring Dale and Aaron in and say, listen, you're free to leave at any time. They're not under arrest. They're your victims. You're just trying to gain more information. You haven't quite focused on them as suspects. You just know that something doesn't smell right. You don't even have to Mirandize them, but you can say, hey, you're free to leave at any time. You can go. You can actually go and contact them. You can go contact them in their house. I would probably take them down to the station if I was going to turn around and charge them for false reporting of a crime. I would probably call them in and do it the formal way, because we're going to turn around and we're going to charge them with false reporting of a crime. And if we know and we can establish that Aaron and Dale decided before they went to the kangaroo to do that, you have a conspiracy to commit a felony. So even though it's a strong arm robbery, robbery is by force and fear, all right? Force and fear, and you're trying to extract something. Were they too drunk to sign affidavits? We don't know. But we do know this, that if they admitted to trying to extract money from Little Ricky Jr. by force or fear, you have a suspect and suspect two. Unless Aaron says he didn't know, I was just trying to help my friend, and then I didn't find out until after the fact that he was trying to rob him. But if he knew beforehand and he was lying, if he knew beforehand, then that's a conspiracy. So we see that? So then we're going to take the whole package and we're going to go, and if we need to get a search warrant, we'll get another search warrant. Here's the other thing I'm going to tell you though. When you're doing your search warrants and when you're doing any of these things, if someone points out a mistake to you, do not try to cover it up. Do not stand there and lie to them. Do not tell them something else, because if you tell them that what you see is not what you see, we're stepping right back into the theater of the absurd, where lies dictate everything. And we're not those kind of people, are we? We're actually honest people who want to serve our community. So because you want to serve your community and I want to serve my community, it's real easy. It's easy to do a small investigation. All you have to do is just take into consideration that we're not going to profile people. We're not going to judge them based on their appearance. We're going to make a determination based on their character and the situation and the proven evidence. So the other thing is we want to make sure that our evidence tech is on the ball. Okay, our evidence tech has to be on the ball. If the evidence tech isn't collecting things properly and leaving good receipts, we know that's a problem, right? You leave something random like 14 knives. 14 what knives? I'm missing 2 $550 knives I bought at the I bought at the gun show, and that's not unreasonable. I mean, they're expensive, but now I can't find them. And there's no description on the search warrant, so now I'm going to sue the county for, $1,000. Just $1,000, but it's my $1,000 for 2 knives I can't find, and I don't know. What if they say they don't have them? What if they took the 2 knives, but somebody put them in their pocket? We're just taking so many pocket knives, I'm not even going to say anything. This one's mine. People steal on search warrants too. We had a guy fired for that as well. People get fired for the stupidest things, right? Sometimes they get fired for mistreating the public. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about how to conduct a secondary investigation? Subpoena deuces taken. Listen, so now we go back. If we had gone to little Ricky's house and we weren't sure, now let's say little Ricky doesn't want to cooperate with us, right? Because you already put him in jail. So if he doesn't want to cooperate with you against Aaron and Dale, that conspiracy, and he ended up in jail and all this other stuff, now he's just like, I don't want to. You can actually get a subpoena deuces taken and get those items and make him produce those items that are considered evidence, or his clothing, or whatever you needed to get. You could actually give him a subpoena deuces taken that he would have to produce those items. Or let's say if his dad had recordings around the house, and they were of officers in his house for 5 hours. There were recording devices that were left on, or just a continual recording devices with signs up that say, hey, this premises is continually monitored. Those things could be considered evidence, especially in a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit. So if, let's say somebody was going to turn around and sue for a violation of civil rights, or I don't know, Title 18, 242, where things weren't correct and they were pointed out that they weren't correct, and then rights were violated under the fact that it was a dishonest search warrant. So if that be the case, then that's kind of what we're looking at. That's why you would want to maintain some of those items. And then the sheriff might want to do a search warrant on my house to try to stop me, or who knows what he's doing. So anyways, does anybody else have any questions? Nope. All right. So our period instructions there on strong arm robbery, your enabling learning objectives, and your terminal learning objectives were covered. They're also in the outlines I passed out. So if you have any questions, before we leave though today, we're going to have a little prayer meeting after in the back. So if you want to join us for that, you're welcome to as well. So I really do appreciate it. Hopefully these glasses weren't too freaky looking for you. And remember, do me a favor, everybody. Hey, love God with all your heart. And love your neighbors as yourself. Yeah, guys, as you leave, just go out the back door. I'm trying to get this shut.